a landmark trade agreement aimed at waiving tariffs on selected products, a move expected to deepen bilateral trade, attract investment, and improve market access to Nigerian goods in the Middle East. That's what the president has always said he intends to do: deepen relations, deepen bilateral ties, and most importantly, ensure that it is economically beneficial to both countries. So that's why we have the CEPA, also known as the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Well, I'm not that good in explaining because, one, I wasn't there, but I've read a little bit about it. Some questions, of course, are begging for answers. Joining us this morning is someone I've always watched, haven't interviewed him here on this show as well, but of course, he's always canvassing and, of course, shedding light on very critical issues of public importance. Please make welcome a journalist and a politician as well, Dr. Niyi Akinshiju. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
It's a pleasure here too. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning to you. So of course, the obvious question anyone really would like to know is, what does this even really mean in the first place? And what is different from this one and other agreement we've had prior now? What changes is CEPA trying to achieve?
Well, I think the first thing is to understand the context of the emerging nature or character of global diplomacy, especially that has to do with economic diplomacy. You will recall that perhaps up until when the current president of the United States of America was sworn in, we had what is called globalization. The globalization as a philosophy was the underlining of economic relationship between and amongst countries, sovereign countries of the world. But of course, the idea of globalization itself is skewed. It's a deliberately skewed philosophy because it's supposed to be a bridge between the global north and the global south. Whereas an opportunity was given for the global north, which is which have countries that were more economically developed, more manufacturing and productively perhaps efficient, and was looking for opportunities to direct their products, to the global south that held markets, for their products. So there was that advocacy around, accessing markets, between the countries of the global north and the global south. But it was well couched for other countries, to adopt and embrace the idea of globalism. For some of us, we understood the context, and we thought the global south would, of course, be naturally marginalized. But again, that was evolving, and I thought that, of course, with the role of the World Trade Organization and that we have in Nigeria, there will be a lot of effort to start balancing out whatever may be the negativity of globalization. Then here enters President Trump with his protectionism. Mm-hmm. So with protectionism, what the President Trump administration is doing is to say that, look, we are taking America away from the global scenario, and that America would now also want to advance its own personal national interest. So what we now have is a situation where America, which used to be the pivot of globalization, has become more protective of its own national interest. So the pendulum is now swinging to what you now call bilateralism. Bilateralism is the relationship between one country and a specific other country, where countries now meet, or other countries identify a country that shares the same interests, with it, and of course find a way of exploiting opportunities, in that relationship. So I think it's bilateralism that the Nigerian president, is advancing now, identifying specific countries that can, of course, advance its economic interests at a peer mutually beneficial, premise. So between Nigeria and the United Arab Emirates, we are talking of perhaps what we call a middle power. Nigeria is not exactly a middle power, but the UAE is a middle power, and the interest for Nigeria is to have, more open doors, more market access, and of course, more possibility of foreign direct investment into its own economy in a way that is beneficial and, of course, based on mutual respect. That is what I've been lacking in the whole concept of globalization. So for me, the difference between bilateralism and globalization is the fact that you identify a partner of interest, and of course you relate to this partner of interest as a mutually beneficial, trusting, and respectful manner.
Okay. If I understand you correctly, you're talking about the instability and the fact that United States has said, look, I am protectionism is the way to go. I need to protect my interest first. And the fact that you can see from what we've observed from last week in Davos, where other European unions and Canada are pivoting towards a different powers that ordinarily United States would have hold sway in the conversation. I think that's what the president is doing here with his new love for getting new, you called it bilateralism, as in your own words now, with countries like France and, of course, United. That is what is playing out now.
Yeah, that is what is playing out now, and I think that's the best route to take. We can also extend the philosophy of globalization to multilateralism. That is to say, where you have institutions, global institutions of state, that are actually embodiments of cooperation of all countries, like the United Nations, like the IMF, the World Bank, and all that. But again, because of the U.S. Determination to to advance its own personal national interest. You will know that recently the U.S. decided to opt out of about 60 something to 70 global institutions. Now that is a death knell on multilateralism, because up till that time, the United States was a major funder and sponsor, of these entities, as it were. So the whole idea, as the way I'm thinking, is that the president has been able to, by the power and capacity of foresight, look into the future and see the direction of foreign economic diplomacy, which one will best suit the Nigerian space the more. And of course, if you are talking of France, we have a historical relationship with France. If we are talking about United Arab Emirates, we have historical relationship with United Arab Emirates, but in different forms of engagement. For the first time, if we are talking about UAE, for instance, for the first time we are coming into a relationship that specifies specific economic engagement. And that is the way I will put it now. That is the way a person of focus and philosophically driven should think. At the point in time, we had so many Nigerians heading to the UAE, especially to Dubai. One, because of the liberalism that determined access to that space, but there were no definite economic engagements, economic agreements before now. Well, now we are this deeper this economic partnership has specific forms of engagement that, in a way, that we are exploiting, and of course we enjoy the benefit of the capacity, the non-capacity of the UAE economy, especially in the area of port management. That's one of the elite port capacity and capability in the world. In the area of aviation, In the area of aviation, you also have Emirates. Emirates Airline has is a global brand of respect, and you can go even in the area of defense complex, So I think to a large extent, this one-on-one approach would be better and be more beneficial than perhaps the multilateralism approach.
Come to think of it, the unpredictability of a country like United States, who is shirking in its once dominant role of using diplomacy to manage economy as well as democracy, using the instrumentality of, look, democratic tenets are the way to go. How do you think it will play out with Nigeria trying to conduct a business, one-on-one business, not forgetting that, look, it's also a slippery slope if you strike like what the United States president is saying now, if Canada do not order the F-35s from United States, it's likely to attack. And he goes to the maximum just to achieve even the minimum. First, it goes all the way up and threatened with tariff. Like Nigeria has also been a beneficiary of that. He has done that to China, to the European countries, just for the tiny island of Iceland there. But a situation where Nigeria is following this route, don't you think we are entering into a very murky waters, or you believe we can, if we manage it well, we won't offend the Donald Trumps of this world?
Well, Donald Trump has in many ways defined the kind of character the new America should play in the new global world, as it were. But fortunately, or rather, let me come from the point of view. I mean, let's establish the fact that the vision of Donald Trump was a world where the United States of America was a singular, dominant entity, dominant sovereign, and of course, they are determined to use both the solemn power of state and the active power of state to engage the countries across the world. And of course, some sovereign states are not even running away from describing the Trump administration as a bully administration, as it were. Unfortunately for Nigeria, either consciously or unconsciously, we have come from a point where we are not exactly as dependent, on the United States of America's economy, so that the tariff regime, as it were, had minimal, impact on us. It is not as if it didn't have at all, but it had minimal impact on us. One, if you compare our dependency, our level or ratio of dependency with America compared to South Africa and America, you know what I'm talking about. Because already the South Africa is experiencing a sort of disruption, in its economic sphere because of the tariff implementation or the tariff sanction. So what is appropriate at this point in time is to be able to identify who would be your friend. And it's not just about friendship. Who would be your friend that respects you for what and who you are? As it were, America is showing disrespect to everybody, And the whole idea is, at the end of the day, Europe, for instance, would find itself and find a way of relating to itself within its own cocoon, the global north, countries of the global south, will also find a way of relating with themselves within their own cocoon. And that is why you are saying Nigeria relating to a UAE, and of recent relating to a Turkey, So the whole idea is to continue to find a way of finding partnership that is beneficial and that is mutually trusting and mutually respectful.
Okay, let me now bring it home now. When we have this kind of bilateral agreement, do you think it is proportionately shared in terms of benefit, or in terms of trade. And that's where we talk about balance of trade. Doesn't it shift to the person with the more comparative advantage? Or because I can look through the number of deals signed here that will waive tariff on some of the goods on both sides of the divide. But isn't this detrimental to that balance of trade that we will be? And of course, not forgetting AFTA too is also there. How does this even tie into the West African or African Continental Free Trade Agreement, where we're trying to build more within the African continent as against just going to the Middle East?
Every economy finds a way of seek out markets. It's also unfortunate that over time we have seen Nigeria in perception as a country that is limited in terms of productive capacity. Indeed, yes. But again, if you do a track back for the past so many years, you also realize that we have a country that has been able to enable a lot of production activities. And when you have a country that has been able to enable a lot of production activities, the next point would be where is the market? This productive, the productive power, would be dispersed. So either at the level of the African Free Trade Area or at the level of a country like Dubai, the country like UAE. Let us first put the UAE in context. The UAE, with the different emirates within it, the Emirates of Abu Dhabi, the Emirates of Dubai, for instance, are known as the global supermarkets. They are global supermarkets where all manners of goods get into, and you have people, come from every part of the world, to trade. Now, if you have the opportunity of getting your products into a market like that, you are not just exposing your products, to just that geographical space. There is a possibility of re-export, from that space. So for me, that's a major accomplishment, by that economic partnership. Now, the United Arab Emirates too is strong in a number of products. For instance, we know it has a strong airline brand, the Emirates brand. We know it's strong in terms of port management. We know it's strong in terms of military defense complex. So the most important thing is that it is also strong in terms of possible foreign direct investment, either in the area of ports establishment or in the area of airline and accessories, establishment and all that. So for me, I think to a large extent we are going into a partnership that is mutually beneficial to the extent that we are able to access markets, at the global level. While at the same time, we already have the opportunity of accessing African economies, African markets, and to a large extent, everybody that is following the African Free Trade Agreement knows that it's as if the FEC, the African Continent Free Trade Agreement or Free Trade Zone, is going to be beneficial to the Nigerian economy, because one of the capacity already shown by Nigerian operators, either at the level of manufacturing, at the level of service provision providers and all that. But it won't stop us from also exploiting or extending our boundaries to the global space that is allowed, by the United Arab Emirates. So we are talking of getting to that space at a lesser cost, because when you have levies removed on so many products, it does mean that your product will also be competitive in that sphere. And when it's competitive, it allows for more, more sales. And when you have more sales, the upside of it is that you have more productivity. That is going to impact our local domestic economy by providing expanded capacity, to produce for our producers here, and in so doing, also increase opportunity for jobs, in the Nigerian economy.
I love your answers to the extent that, look, the United Arab Emirates is like a supermarket where if your goods can get to that place with a level of quality that they've established, you can also, is an access to the rest of the world, because people from all over the world will get there, and of course you can also shop from there. However, how come that's why I said, to the extent, how come political economists in Nigeria aren't excited about what you've just posited, looking at the enormous potential this can have on the productive sector of the real economy of Nigeria? And oftentimes, if you hear any politician will talk about, look, our real sector isn't doing that much, we aren't producing enough in this country, but this is a good opportunity, and this something ordinarily, if you hear about it, is something to applaud, considering that it is opening Nigeria up to the rest of the world. Not only the reliance we have with Europe and America, but we're also divesting in a way to other parts of the world, to the African continent, as well as to the UAE. Why isn't there this uproar of excitement from people that understand the nitty-gritty of this agreement, like you've expatiated?
Well, there are a number of analysts, when they relate with the topic or an issue, it's true, they see it from the ordinary point of view. When I take an issue, I try to look at it from a more robust 360-degree point of view. And that starts from even looking first at the negative possibilities of whatever engagement or endeavor we are talking about. And you look at, of course, your worst case scenario. And from coming from a worst case scenario, you're able to understand what your best case scenario is. And just like you said, the worst case scenario here will be a possibility of a trade imbalance, where the other party, the UAE, for instance, is known for more capabilities, more productive capabilities and all that. But again, the truth of the matter is, we also have our own peculiar comparative advantage in terms of cost of labor. You see, I can tell you from what I've been reading of recent, that Nigeria is being considered as a next labor market of the world. Don't forget that at the point in time, about 20 years ago, China became the labor market of the world, where factories around the world were relocating, to China because of the cost of labor. The cost of labor is a major input in the production elements, in the production factors. So, if Nigeria has that advantage, it will obviously reflect in the final cost of production. So already we are enjoying the benefit of cost. So whatever we are taking to the world, despite our disadvantages here in terms of what is obvious, power, access to power and cost of power, that would also be offset by the costs of labor, and other relative costs, other costs of other inputs to the production process. So to a large extent, I believe that Nigeria is doing well, especially if you look at, for instance, Nigeria is renowned for the quality of cable wires, and you can only imagine if the producers of those quality cable wires, they have been confirmed as some of the global best cable wires produced in Nigeria. So just imagine what companies accessing UAE markets, and that accessing also means that there will be possibility of exposure, to international financial institutions, and through that, of course, international capital coming to the country. So there are so many different ways you can look at this, and for me, any opportunity to have access to a market that can, of course, bridge the global market for you is a market that is an opportunity that should be applauded. And that's why I personally applaud this this economic partnership between Nigeria and UAE.
Okay, as we coast home with this conversation, I guess the obvious question to ask is, with this kind of agreement, do you foresee other agreement? Okay, or how soon do we begin to see the result of this? Because there's no way you will sign this agreement. I'm sure the president is going to use it as part of the talking points very soon. Election is just we're at the eve of the election very soon. So how soon do we see it manifest to the extent that the president can say, look, I signed this agreement and this is what it has brought? Is there a gestation period where you say, look, in the next 2 to 3 months, we'll begin to see this manifest. We can see a considerable or significant uptick in exports and an advantage seen from this kind of agreement?
Well, I know there's an ongoing relationship, business economic relationship between operators, private sector operators in Nigeria and the private sector operators in the UAE. But I think what quickly comes to mind was the agreement signed between our own airpeace, and the Emirates.
Emirates, yes.
And that has become immediately effective. That has become immediately effective, such that because of that collaboration, those places, those airports that airpeace could not access, the Emirates will take a Nigerian further into those spaces. Those spaces that Emirates could not access, airpeace will take passengers, Nigerian passengers, further, into that space. So even referencing that particular activation between airpeace and Emirates, and that it had become operational, as it were, is suggestive of the fact that agreement, between Nigeria and UAE have already started functioning.
Okay, I must say that someone that covers aviation myself is one of the things we've always wondered when it's going to happen. Is code share, or so that our local operators can take whatever is coming internationally and share across the country, which will also be good for our domestic operators. So for the first time, so many players in the aviation sector are really, really happy about this, because Emirates is a major player internationally, not only even in the Middle East. So to have a local operator, that level of confidence, and I believe that this is good. We're going to get a semblance of how it has really helped our local economy. And finally, before we go, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is what we call subtle diplomacy, international shuttle of economic. Is very, very vibrant as far as that is concerned. Do you see him this kind of like political, though? And I'm sure you're a politician yourself, so I'm sure you can handle this. Do you see this as something that it can use as is campaign talking points that, look, I have gone around the world, I have opened up our borders to those that can help us in the future, as against sticking with those that it is not really certain. The economic, America has changed a whole lot of world leaders' perspective about their play as far as global politics is concerned. Can we say moving to other element or climbs for understanding of how business should be done is a good way to go, and that he has taken Nigeria to that path that will be sustainable?
I think every Nigerian should start congratulating the president for his intuition, for his capacity to more or less see into the future. Because there are still a number of countries in the global north, the global south.
Yeah.
We'll say global south, the emerging countries, emerging economies, underdeveloped economies, and all that are still fixated, on the countries of global north, especially on America. But you have a president that has a so strong understanding of the limitations and capacity, the strength and weakness of this country. And a major weakness of this country is foreign capital. No economy survives without foreign capital, because it is foreign capital that activates the economy as it were. And when I'm talking foreign capital, we are not just talking about, because you have different forms of foreign capital. You have foreign portfolio capital. You have foreign direct capital. Foreign direct capital is that preferred kind of capital that survives, that nurtures, that flourish an economy, because it comes into that economy to seek equity. And by seeking equity, it creates economic opportunities. It founds economic institutions by itself and provide opportunities for domestics, within that economy. And to get that, you must have countries that have made commitment to you based on trust and mutual benefit, And it's those kind of countries that will now encourage their private sectors to start looking into your own area of operations. So eventually, you will have companies, from those jurisdictions coming and situating and establishing in Nigeria. And for instance, we've had an issue with our foreign direct investment portfolio, over time. But all of a sudden, I saw in third quarter 2025 that our foreign direct investment, went surged up to $750 million, as it were. That was a difference from when it used to be under $20 million. That $750 million is money coming into this country to establish businesses, enterprises, and of course provide job opportunities for Nigerians.
Okay.
And it's most likely that it will come from some of these relationships that were broken, as it were. So, to a large extent, the president should, have a reason to even be proud of himself. And for some of us who understand these basic issues, I think we should commend the president for going through this round.
Thank you very much, Dr. Niyi Akinshiju, for joining us this morning to expatiate. Ordinarily, the topic was so limited, but you've helped us to expatiate and, of course, put a global perspective to the conversation. Thank you very much, sir, for your time, for joining us this morning on the conversation.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking with a journalist and politician, Dr. Niyi Akinshiju, and the conversation has been broad and comprehensive. We'll take a very short break. When we come back, the Lagos part of this conversation will continue. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.